It's now 24 minutes after 8. You're watching Morning Express on this 17th day of June. Glad that you could be with us this morning. And now it's time for lifestyle. And one thing that we must admit is that the role of men seems to have changed over time. Traditionally, the man was the hunter. He would go out, get the, spoil for the day, bring it, and the woman would cook. But that seems to have changed over time. And just a quick reminder that this Sunday is Father's Day. And of course, we are encouraging you to celebrate your father. But joining me this morning to talk about the role of the father and the man in society today is a panel that is made up of men. In fact, I was saying before we came on that this should have just been called Men Talk, as we don't have a lady in the panel. But anyway, let me start by first of all introducing the panel. And we have Chris Hart, who's a relationship expert. Thank you for coming. We have Pastor Simon Bevy, who is the Executive Director of Transform Nations. Welcome, Pastor. Thank you. We also have Ken Oko, who's a sociologist.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning to you. And let me start with you, Ken, since you're closest to me and you are the last one to arrive. Just letting everybody know.
Oh, shut up.
But you'll be the first one to take the heat. But now, has the role of the man changed in society over time?
The man's role has not really changed. It's just that the women redefined that role on our behalf. The man's role has always been that stoic arrangement where the man is supposed to be, like Chris likes saying, the provider, the one who pays the bills and does all those things. But the role of man as a protector, as a role model, as a head of the household, those ones have changed. Yeah, because these days the women and the children are holding fort on their own and saying, "You're here for us, but we can do this just as well." Yeah, but the idea of provider, like I always say, Chris is very traditional about that, but he says that role has not changed, and I totally agree with him. Mm-hmm. The man is always seen as that one who's supposed to give whatever is required of him by the woman in his life, by the children in his life, and I guess all the attendant relatives. But over time, as we evolve, as society evolves, the male role, of course, cannot be rigid. The reason we say that is because when we look at reciprocity, you can only be defined as a husband if your wife says you are a husband. Because you could be a husband by title, but your wife always says, this man is not man enough. So every woman around you knows you're not man enough. But if she agrees and says, this man of mine is just the best, then you are a husband, according to them. So basically, I think what we are saying in short is that the man's role has always remained what it is. The women around us have evolved rather faster than us, and so they are redefining that role on our behalf.
Okay. Pastor Simon Bevy, do you think the role has changed over time?
To some degree, I would agree with Ken, that in some ways it's changed, but I would say it's not really changed in terms of the basic expectation. It's an expression of it. For example, provision. My wife is working, but she still expects me, in a sense, to give leadership in the way we use resources. And even when she knows that we don't have resources, the two of us, she'll still come to me and say, what do we do? She still expects me to give vision, and provision is not just about the money, it's also about vision for the family. So in some ways, in spite of the changes with women and the involvement of women, they still expect us to give leadership in the society. A few things have changed, like protection. My father used to sleep with a panga next to the pillow. I don't need to do that anymore because I'm in a gated community.
But ultimately, you still are the protector for the home.
I still give, just my presence in the home makes the family feel securer than when I'm not. And then I also protect the children from other things. I mean, I want to know what are they watching, what is in their phone. That's protective. It's expressed differently, but still protection, because I watch over the family.
Chris, do you agree that the role still remains fundamentally the same?
Of
it's
course,
the expression that changes.
Yes,
I think Chris is predictable on this one.
I mean, the world seems to change, but really everything stays the same. And the truth is, of course, men's role has never changed for thousands of years. You have to ask, though, what the fundamental role of men is. And the real fundamental role of a man is to be chosen by a woman. Not all men have children. Not all men pass their genes into the next generation. So
to
men
be chosen or to choose?
Sorry?
To be chosen or to choose a woman?
No, to be chosen. At the end of the day, women are very particular about who they will have as a husband, who they will have to be the father of their children. And If you are not one of the chosen, you might never have been born. It makes no difference. So men compete to be chosen. And when you look at what men do in their lives, it's all about competition. Men compete to be the wealthiest, to have the biggest cars, to paint the prettiest pictures, to sing the best song. Why do men do this? And ask yourself, why don't women? The degree of competition amongst women is much lower than it is.
And it's on different things. It's beauty.
Well, yes, of course they compete in terms of beauty. Not that you can do a huge amount about that. You know, you're stuck with what God gave you. But women don't compete with anything like the ferocity of men. Men will compete to the death. Women do not compete to the death, anything like as much. Why? Because they have to be chosen. Now, that rolls on into what is the role of the man in the family. He has to show his children what it is to be a man, which means you must, son, succeed. You know, he must. If his boy does not succeed, he might just as well never have brought him up. So that is the role of a man, to demonstrate to children.
Maybe I could ask something just in what you said. I like what you said, that we compete to be chosen as well. But I also see that the women sort of parade themselves, sorry to use that word, for us. Because in a sense, in our culture generally, we're the ones who make the first move. If I don't initiate, okay, they have begun to initiate.
But this isn't true, you see. It looks like men make the first move, but they don't. Picture a man walking into a party. You know, he pauses as he walks in. What does he look for? He looks at all the women, and he looks to see which ones look up. He goes to them, doesn't he? He does not go and try his luck with a woman who's quite made it perfectly clear she's not interested in him. So women actually do make
men persist a lot because
that's Hollywood. Hollywood has this wonderful myth that unrequited love persists long enough and she'll give in. No, she won't. She'll file a harassment case. You know.
Actually, if you think about it, Michael, the idea that Chris is trying to put across is in the dating game, during the selection process, the man has that choice. Like, you know, like you say, hypothetically, you walk into a party, you find 10 women, 5 of them already look up and, you know, there's that expression on their faces that, oh, they take note. The other 4.5 or 5 totally disinterested because probably they already have the man of their lives. But in that process, as the man is doing that, actually I'm reluctantly agreeing with Chris that it is the women who make that decision. Because if she says, looks wrong, you'll try up to kingdom come, you'll never get through.
I hate to say this.
Wonderful analogy. Could it be that they really don't make, we make the approach and they accept?
They make the choice.
No, they don't.
They make the choice.
They make a choice. What they do, it's all in that first few seconds. You know, it's everything about your confidence, your dress, everything that says.
They can evaluate you very quickly.
In seconds. They look at the way the other people are evaluating you. They look at all the things that say, where does this person sit in society? Is he a winner? And if you walk in with that win on your face, then a certain number of women will look up to you. Now, think of it, the women are in a hierarchy too. The very pretty ones, they won't bother. You know, he's not good enough for me. The one at the bottom won't bother because she thinks
maybe that's why they get left out most of the time.
Did you get the idea?
Yes, I get the idea.
Maybe as we move on to another role, Ken, before you join, you know, my brother here. Don't you think that role of, I mean, as a man, I want to feel like a hunter. You know, in high school, we would sit back and see a very beautiful girl and say, let's try our luck. And she would ignore you the first time, ignore you again, and eventually you get to wear her down, and she sort of begins
You see, what happens, Pastor, is that sometimes when you think of what a man does, he is supposed to avail himself in the market, the social market. And that's the first step. Your mother gets you ready for that, your father gets you ready for that. And once you're out there, the girls then, in fact, the reason I say Kenyan women have evolved is because these days they take the initiative, like you hinted. And they are the ones who will make a decision and say, this guy is worth my time. And believe you me, if you're not making a move, they'll make a move. The Kenyan woman today will make a move
Not
on
just
you.
Kenyan women.
I guess, the modern woman. the modern woman will make a move on you. And most men, they still get shocked, like, oops, you know, they're not aware that the woman can actually come and say, hey, how are you doing? I like you. then a lot of men get taken aback, you know. But basically, like Chris says, as traditional as it sounds, you know, our role remains almost stagnant in that regard. Yeah.
Okay.
What he just said is very important. I don't like the word stagnant, but if you look at all the societies around the world, you see the same thing happening. You see societies, you know, as primitive as you like, and what are the women doing? They are choosing the men. You know, you remember Leni Riefenstahl took all those wonderful photographs of the men fighting. Then the men sit down after the fight and the women dance. What do the women do? They choose the winners.
Towards the ones who won, yes.
Wow, you see, that's been going on for 1,000 years.
So it's been going on. Okay, I know Pastor Mbevi, I'm not sure you quite agree. I'm yet to be convinced that that's the way it is actually. But just for the benefit of time and to move on, Pastor, assuming that now the man has been chosen.
The choice has been made.
The choice has been made. He still has a role to play. And maybe, Pastor Mbevi, you can just give us some of the roles, the fundamental roles that a man is required to have and to be viewed as a father. Because again, this being Father's Day, one thing that I would encourage is not just to celebrate your biological father, but there are those father figures. There are those who may not have a biological father they know, but they have somebody they look up to as a man. So what are some of those roles that define you as a man?
Well, I usually like to talk about the 5 Ps, and some of the roles sounds religious, but really it's expressed in different ways. Number 1, I should say, is a provider, and I agree with you in that. And provision is not just having to pay the bills, as I said, it's also leading and showing a vision and giving leadership, facilitation of where we're going in this little economy or civilization we call the family. Number 2 for me is being present, which is probably the most important one, that a man needs to be present with the family. You can't do the rest of the things if you're not present. I mean, I remember some of the ways that I would play with my dad, you know, just being there, not even doing anything, just being able to talk, to play. He lifts me up, he throws me up in the air. You know, that connection, that just relationship, building relationship, which is something for most men. In fact, Ken, a survey we did recently, just with some of the men we were training in one of our programs, showed an average man spends about 7 minutes with his family a day, on average.
7 minutes.
7 minutes.
Oh, Lord.
How much could you do with that? Because he's busy, he comes in late,
he's tired,
when the kids, he just wants to watch news and Manu versus Arsenal and sleep. He doesn't really spend time with the children. So presence for me. I think a lot of the people cry out there with father hunger. He wasn't there. I just needed dad to be there, just to play with me, check my homework book and things like that. And so provider, presence, provision is the, protection is the other one. And we have said that the expression of that is different now. But just being able to care enough for your family to watch over and against the ills of the society. There's something that happened some while ago that made me feel like I wasn't a very good protector for my family. I was watching TV and I saw, you know, fire caught in one of the homes, and the children, you know, with their mother, you know, burned to death in the home. And the man was away, I think, in a pub or something. And when he came back, they were all dead. And then I just realized, actually, I haven't done a fire drill in my home. I'm a protector, but I've not been able to tell my children, what do they do in case fire broke out? And I went and got trained at G4S and went home and trained them. And I felt good as a dad that I was actually thinking protectively over my family. So expression is different. The other one is priesthood. I think fathers traditionally have always been expected to be able to lay down the law, as it were, and train values. I mean, that's why we talk about Proverbs. And a lot of Proverbs were by the elders, you know. They sort of guided culture and the values of the society. And that's what I call a priest. One who talks about faith, whatever faith that is, whatever people believe in, and the values as well. And lastly for me is what I call a prophet. And a prophet is one who speaks into the life of another, not the prophets we see these days, Ken, on TV.
We shall name no names.
Yeah, but the one who tells you, in a sense, who you are. I think, Ken, you teach in sociology,
yes.
But especially around teenage, children look up a lot to what their daddy says about them. If they affirm them, if they tell them who they are. I was doing a talk with some prostitutes in a controlled environment. And I was surprised to realize about 90% of them had been called a prostitute by their dad. There's just some power in a father telling you you're beautiful, you're useless, you're a prostitute. My father, before he died when I was 8 years old. He had told me something that I've kept with since then. One day, I think it was just a word he said in passing. He said, Musyoka, that's the name he used to call me, you're going to be a leader. And I don't remember many other things he said, but I still remember that. My dad believed in me, and I just wanted to live out to fulfill his prophecy in a sense. So those are the 5 roles I see. Again, expressed differently, but roles.
Chris, maybe I'll come to you, and let's talk about maybe the provider, for example, because in the olden days, it was easy to tell what the provider was, because all he did was go out, hunt, bring, and it was quite easy, although she would still go and, you know, fetch water and all that. But that seems to have changed with time, and I'm not sure, just like Pastor had said earlier, whether it's because the role changes in our minds or it's the execution. We have the woman maybe even earning more than the man. Has that role changed? Should it change? What do we do about it?
No, it hasn't changed. Women have actually always been more independent than people think. If you look back in history, women have been tough. You know, the Viking women were notorious. You know, there were Elizabethan women who ran huge estates. It is not true that women were always downtrodden and the men stood on them and now they've suddenly recovered their heritage. It's not true. They've always been pretty independent. But women have always selected men for their ability to protect and provide and so on. Absolutely true. I mean, in the most simple societies, you will find that it's always the best hunter who is selected. He's the one who has the most children. I hate to say it, it's the most effective killer. You know, the guy who's got the biggest sword. He gets selected.
The warrior.
The warrior, yeah. So women have always chosen men for their ability to provide and protect, always.
Okay, let's talk about presence, Ken. And of course, again, given the kind of world we're living in, it's completely changed. One leaves very early in the morning because of traffic or whatever excuse we have, because sometimes they're more of excuses than reasons, comes back home very late, and there just doesn't seem to be that time that one should spend with a child. How do we go around that?
You know, I always tell my students when we are defining roles in class, and of course there's always an uproar, but I stand firm when I say the most difficult role in the world is being a husband and a father. Just basically being a man, because you know there's so much that's expected of you, and your wife is almost like a barometer. You know, she keeps telling you, oh, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do it like this? And then when you do that, she says, I wish we had done it like that. You know, then the children come in with the same story. Daddy, we need to do this, we need to do that. And you know, you sit there and you're thinking, I'm one person, for heaven's sake. Yeah, but you have to do that for them. And presence a lot of times is, like Pastor says, when that baby comes and says, Daddy, I want to give you a massage, and you know they're going to do a very bad job of that massage, but you're still there for them to give them that chest, you know, to rub. And that memory lingers, believe you me, it lingers for a long time. The reason I say the role of being a husband is very difficult is because when we talk to men before marriage, what are the rules you're going to have? They have so many, about 21 of them. You know, my wife must do this, she must look good, she must come home early, she must cook well, blah, 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 fish cake. When you ask the women, what do you expect? They usually just have one rule, and she says, I need my man to be there. But you know, being there carries 100 other things in it. You know, so if you really don't understand being there, you might think, oh, physical, I need to be home. But I always say this, when a woman says, be there for me, you could be in New York, and she's in Kisumu. But she knows you're there for her because you can cry with her on the phone, you know. So basically, the presence thing sometimes is not necessarily physical. If you're able, like these days, with the help of the phone, technology, to communicate with your children, every time you just wake up and hit up on them, and they get back to you. And sometimes they tell you more than they would if you're there. You know, if you're just sitting there, maybe mommy is sitting there growling at them. They're not able to say what they want to say. But when you finally open up that line and they know that he's not that rigid, I can talk to him. Believe you me, that's
well, so Pastor, is the presence thing more of an emotional need than a physical
It's a connection.
I think it's both. I would say it's both, Ken, because I think some men could say, okay, I'm not going to be around for a year, so I'm going to do that. But there are some things you can't do, you know, from a distance.
On your phone.
So when you're away and you're busy working, you should do that. But you should also then be home and present.
True.
Because, you know, they need the touch, the feel, you know, the playing around, the expression on your face when you're present. So I think it's both. When globalization and reality takes you out of home, then you need to compensate for that and do a lot more of the other. But that shouldn't be
the
an
paradox
excuse
of
to
it
stay away.
is like, I was telling my daughter just a short while ago, I think about 3 weeks ago, she goes, Daddy, you know, you're always so busy. And then I said, okay, fine, but when I'm home, I don't see you. Because she's in her room. Then she says, as long as I know you're there.
Defining presence very well.
You know, so presence sometimes is
just, maybe this is something that we are losing over time. And maybe, Chris, we can talk about this being the concentration on the girl child as opposed to the boy child, because that, of course, has taken a lot the center stage. Could we be short-circuiting our system in a way?
Oh, yes. Yes, I mean, I have nothing against campaigns for the girl child, but people have lost sight of what it is to be a boy in all of that. And one of the things that's really been lost is the idea that boys and girls have to be brought up differently. You know, if you looked at schools 50, 60 years ago, they treated boys and girls differently. They had different expectations of boys and girls. And those expectations were very much built on how boys and girls would have to behave when they were grown up. So in a way, schools and the family were good learning grounds for children becoming adults. Suddenly the emphasis on the girl child took all that away. Suddenly everybody's supposed to be a girl. You know, boys are supposed to go to school and sit quietly in their desks, you know. The idea that a boy could rush around the playground and maybe fight, God help us, you know. Really weird. So we are bringing up boys who don't know what it is to be men. I'm afraid we've taken all their role models away. You know, the emphasis, I hate to say this, on fathers spending ages out of the family and all the rest of it, they're not there. They're not there to be the role model. I'm not necessarily meaning one-to-one playtime, but they must be in the child's life. The child must see how the man is leading his life. They must see how he's interacting with other men, with other people generally. They must see how he treats his wife, how he treats his children, because what are they doing? They're learning how to do it.
Yeah, they say children learn more from what they see than what they hear.
True.
Pastor Mbevi, I know that you have been very vocal and very deliberate in having campaigns, especially concentrating on the boy child and the man. Tell us maybe a little bit about it, because I think it has to be a deliberate effort.
That's true, and I love what you've said. We are not saying that empowering the girl takes away from the boy. But we are saying, I think we have made a lot of noise and done a lot towards that, and we should still continue. But we also need to do something for the boy. I think I hear lots of complaints, Ken, all the time. People saying, where are the good men? They're gone. The few good men are either taken or dead. That's what I hear all the time. But I feel like we don't realize that the raw material of masculinity tomorrow is a boy today. And if we don't do anything about the boy, and just that fathers are not involved in their sons' lives. You know, I love the way it was traditionally. That as a father, if you were a blacksmith, you would socialize your boy to be a blacksmith. And that dealt with you would talk together, rub shoulders together, do things, talk as you do that. So there's a way that you socialize the boy into masculinity and have conversations. And he's watching you like throughout the day, most of the days. If you're a shepherd, then he would become a shepherd boy. Of course, we have lost that. But I think we need to be intentional in seeing what do we do with the boy. The stats are scary. With fathers not as involved, I think the last census, they said 40% of Kenyan households don't have a living dad. Now, that to me is a tragedy in many ways. The boys in those homes don't have a role model. So for me, I've been very vocal about it. In fact, we're doing a walk this Saturday as a celebration of Father's Day.
March for the boy, right?
Yeah, a march for the boy. Can you invite it if you're around? And we're not just making noise about the boy. We're saying, is it possible in the next 1 year to intentionally mentor 1 million teenage boys? You know, fathers like us go and sit with boys, especially in high schools. A lot of them don't have a relationship with their dads. And even if they have, the way the traditional culture worked is you had uncles and several other men who reinforced what your dad is doing. So the boy had several role models that he looked at. And I think they say in psychology between 14 and 21, the most important voice in a child's life is the voice of a mentor. If he's not there, then the peer will have the loudest voice. And I think for teenage boys, we just need a community of men. I think a boy is made a man in the community of men, and our society show that very well. And so that's why I'm passionate about this. We need to do something about
that. All right, before we bring in Sophia, maybe you can tell us this particular march for the boy, is it something that's just a one-off, or is it something that is being planned to be done long-term? Because one of the things that I've mentioned is that it needs to be deliberate, and that's something definitely we're not doing enough of.
Yeah, the march we do on Saturday in the morning to Uru Gardens, but it's only a launch of a movement. We're saying we're launching the Boys to Men campaign, that every boy deserves a chance to be mentored and socialized into responsible masculinity across the nation. We're telling the men, can we get together and be the mentors? So the march is a launch of a campaign. And we intend every Father's Day in the next 5 years to do something. It may not be a march, or it may be, but with this march, we launch that and we start the conversation.
All right, Sophia, welcome. And I don't know if you've learned a lot about the male figure and the father from the conversation.
It's something that Ken said about, you know, when a woman says they need you to be there, it's not necessarily that you're there physically. I remember there's a time I was in an accident on Mombasa Road, and this let me not give that story.
No, you have to finish. This person was there.
Was there and yet was not around.
Okay.
You get.
Yes, I totally hear you.
Then hallelujah. So was not there, you know, but
you felt
the crazy,
their presence.
their presence, just, you know, in helping. First you come down with all of the madness going around and getting you back to normal as soon as possible. So they're not there physically, but that's the thing that came to my mind when you were talking about that. So yes, in a sense for women, but still you want them there, not always elsewhere.
Not a remote control man.
All right, thank you very much, Chris Hart, who is a relationship expert, Pastor Simon Bevy, Executive Director, Transform Nations, and Ken Oko's a sociologist. Thank you very much for joining us. This is where we'll have to wind it up and call it a day. And yeah, definitely enjoyed the show today.
I did as well. It was great to be your guest. Thanks for inviting me on your panel. Should do that more often.
Yes, and you're a very good panelist. In fact, somebody on Twitter wrote and said, you qualify to interview. So I thought, well... Yeah,
I qualify to interview?
Yeah, I guess they don't know that normally you actually sit here interviewing, so I don't know, maybe...
No, I saw that tweet. No, to interview porters.
Oh, I see. Oh, yes. Okay, maybe I didn't read the full... But anyway, thank you for being a good panelist. Well behaved.
Special thanks.
Special thanks to Sophia Onuna, my co-host, who was a panelist today.
Yes, and to the great team that makes the show happen. Thank you so much. So I'll be away tomorrow for an interview. We're going to shoot out of town, but you'll be with Michael, so we'll see you sometime next week.
And this is how she breaks the news to me, that she'll not be in tomorrow.
Yeah, that he'll be taking over this great cause. And
let me not even tell you how I ended up doing the father thing, because we have some domestic issues that we need to sort out.
See now, if you're a married couple, wageni wakikuja unawacha waende kwanza, so bye.
Have yourselves a great day. Take care of yourselves and each other. And remember, Father's Day on Sunday. Take care of your father.